Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So far we have covered many topics, and out of which we have covered classes, functions and whatnot. So today we are going to cover two more topics which are related to classes, which is inheritance and encapsulation. Inheritance meaning that, let's say if you define something generic and then if you inherit something. So one of the example could be for that is vehicle. In vehicle, you can say a vehicle can be of type two-wheeler or four-wheeler, or it can be of different type, and a vehicle can have a maximum speed as well. So that's like default property. So and then there are different types of vehicles. So vehicle itself would have very basic properties, and then let's say a four-wheeler would have default properties of a vehicle would have, and on top of that it would have its own set of properties. So with that example, we are going to implement inheritance over here, and then we'll also learn the implementation of encapsulation. So let's start with one default vehicle integration over here. So over here, this is our defined class, which we've already covered. So another thing that I want to highlight is that you necessarily you don't need to explicitly specify the value over here. Once you write self.value, it would understand. So let's say if I remove this also would work fine. So you don't have to. So this is one of the advantage of Python programming language, that you don't have to say much of the things explicitly, and it would understand implicitly. So over here, in this class, I'm going to define initializer over, and in that, I would add some more parameters. For example, maximum speed, and yeah, for now, let's just say maximum speed, and maybe the name. Yeah, how about name? So self.max or simply speed equals max speed. I'm gonna set, and self.model equals name. So with this, we have defined a constructor or initializer over here, which takes two parameters, and it's going to set the value for that vehicle. So let's say if I want to create an instance of vehicle class, so I'm gonna say generic vehicle equals vehicle over here, and in that bracket I can specify max speed, which is let's say 80, and over here I'm gonna say Suzuki, let's say CS. So with that, I have created an instance of vehicle. Now time for implementing inheritance. So now I'm going to create a car class, but in this example we are going to inherit vehicle. So this is how we implement inheritance, or I would say this is the syntax for implementing inheritance. More or less everything else more or less remains same. So now I will say init, and immediately it did whole magic. So I just typed underscore init and then hit the enter key, and it wrote everything for me. So now for this one, the car, I would also need, let's say the fuel type. Is it diesel or is it petrol or electric vehicle? So let's say fuel type, and that's like third parameter, and in this case I'm going to set fuel type, and I will accept fuel type parameter. So with that, now the car, or say object of a car, will have three different attributes, two which are derived from the parent class, and one additional attribute or property which is of its own. So this is how you can inherit. So let's say a student class, and then let's say 8th grade student, 9th grade student, so something like that you can also create. That was just an example. So I'm going to create an instance of a car. So let's say we call it Suzuki Alto. In that case, let's say instead of vehicle, we are going to create car. So in that, let's say max speed is 60, and for the name I'm going to write Alto, and for the third parameter I'm going to supply, let's say petrol. Okay. So with that, now we have created an object of car with and which takes three parameters. So this is how you implement inheritance. Of course, we are not displaying any value over here, so let's try implementing polymorphism as well. I think that wasn't the agenda, but let's cover that as well now that we are going through inheritance already. So in this example, we declared initializer already. Now we are going to declare a function, let's say so info, and in this function it's going to simply print the speed which is the vehicle is having, and the model. So let's try formatted string. And in that we will use self.name, and yes, we have to take the self as parameter, and now is having max speed of, and then let's print the speed as well. So with that you can see we are not only displaying the name but also showing the speed. So right after line 21, if I start typing a generic vehicle and hit the full stop over here, you can see the function which is we have defined. Now let me try running this file. So if I right click and then run this, so with that, okay, we're getting an error over here. I know what mistake I did. So we have speed but not the name, we have model variable over here, so that's mistake I did. Now I think it should work. So let's try running this, and with that you can see that it says Suzuki Ciaz is having max speed of 80. Now let's try implementing polymorphism. So we are going to define the same function, so info, and the moment I start typing, it shows the definition of the implementation which is already exist in the parent class. So it's going to autocomplete for me. So this is how you can call the superclass method, and after that you can also write your own logic. So in this one I'm going to say fuel type for, and then self.name, oh it's model, let's not do the same mistake again, is, and then self.fuel type. So with this we're not only printing the speed but also printing the fuel type. So now let's do that. Suzuki Alto, and then so info, let's try running this. So when I do that, it prints basically 2 lines over here in this example for the vehicle Suzuki Alto, so which is of a car type, and that's why it's printing 2 lines, one for the superclass and the other one for the class itself. Right, so with this we've implemented inheritance and polymorphism. Now there's one more thing that we want to cover, which is encapsulation. So all these variables are easily available. So let's say max speed, in this one it shows variable right over in the pop-up, and if I can, even though it was initialized to 80, I can change it to let's say 70, and if I try running this now, you can see that it was modified to 70. What if I don't want the speed variable to be accessible outside the class and it should be accessible inside it? So for that, let's encapsulate the functionality or the variables that we want to. So in order to achieve that, we just have to use __, that's like favorite syntax for Python. So in speed, let's say if we want to keep it internal, so or private, this is how we can use, and now let's say so info is printing the speed, but now if I try to change and run, you can see the speed wasn't modified at all. So speed is not accessible, and because of that it didn't change the value of the speed, which remained same. But what if you actually want to update the speed? So for that you can write another function, and in that you can write update speed, in which you will take one parameter, extra parameter, let's say new speed you will be supplying, and now I'm going to update the value. So for that, self.__speed equals new speed. So with that, now you can see that the function is updating internal property. So instead of setting value like this, you can use function update speed and supply the value, and then with that basically you can have your own business logic which is encapsulated and expose only minimal things which are needed. Now if I run this, the value was indeed updated, but via getter and setter methods. So this is kind of a getter method. It's not returning, but it's printing. So, and this is a setter method. So getter setter method to encapsulate the speed value over here. So with this, we covered 3 things. Inheritance, we were able to inherit vehicle class into car. Then we also discussed about polymorphism. So info was defined over here and it was overridden over here. And the third concept that we covered was encapsulation. We were able to keep the speed variable internal and only accessible by certain methods. So yeah, this is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.